This is SlingStudio, the first affordable live streaming multi-camera platform, an all-in-one wireless solution that's portable and easy to use. 100% battery operated, SlingStudio requires no extra cables, external power, router, or network. The SlingStudio Camera Link wirelessly connects to virtually any camera on set at distances up to 300 feet. Setup is no sweat, taking minutes, not hours. From simply using a smartphone to taking advantage of up to 10 wireless sources, SlingStudio has a vast array of connecting options designed to best fit your production needs. Whichever way you choose to connect, all sources are instantaneously available on the SlingStudio console app. Intuitively designed for the most dynamic live directing program with features like custom graphic and video imports, live switching transitions, picture-in-picture, and more. Live streaming capabilities let you share directly to Facebook, YouTube, or any RTMP destination. Every recording is stored on a single SD card. All files automatically sync and timecode with SlingStudio's Adobe Premiere Pro extension. SlingStudio, the easiest and best solution for live switching, live streaming, and multi-camera production on the market today. This is SlingStudio.
The SlingStudio platform is, as we've said before, is really the industry first wireless and portable studio production unit that fits in a backpack. We literally have a backpack. And as you can see on the screen here, we have the SlingStudio hub, which is in the middle. It's attached to the optional battery pack. Once you attach that battery pack, you don't need power. It can run by itself without any external power and be able to be that switcher, be able to be the recorder, the monitoring system, the audio mixer, and several other features, and allows you to connect that automatically to up to 10 different cameras, up to 10 cameras. And these cameras can be your regular camcorder, they could be your DSLR, your professional camcorder, an action cam, virtually any camera can be connected to SlingStudio wirelessly. And not only wirelessly, you can take each camera and take it 300 feet away from this hub, which really is enabled by this camera link. And the camera link you attach to your camera and allows you to place it, if you're covering a baseball game, you can place it in center field over 300 feet away. And of course, if you want to have some B-roll, if you want to just use your phones, you can use virtually any iOS or Android phone to be able to, as a video source. And you have also the option of an HDMI in and an HDMI out for monitoring. And then for storage, you can use an SD card, there's an SD card connector in the box, or with a USB-C adapter, you can connect a USB 3.0 drive. So terabytes of storage available, and you can store all of your ISOs and your program files and audio files on that one single source. And so therefore, for post-production, as I mentioned before in the shows, we partnered with Adobe for Premiere Pro. And in Dave's workshop, the mini workshop today, we'll talk about that whole workflow with SlingStudio. So why don't you tell us a little bit about what you're going to show for this little workshop?
Sure. So if you switch over to my laptop here, you'll see that I have a Slingcast folder that we've set up. And if I just drill down a little bit, and I'm going to zoom in just to make it a little easier to see, it's probably the same way that anybody would go in and organize a folder. These names are actually coming from the camera packs that we have here on each of the devices. So we've got 125, 179, and one called wide. We also took the time to create some graphics in our assets folders, and we've got some lower thirds. And again, this is all part of the SlingStudio environment where you can actually add graphics while you're out in the field and do all sorts of things. So that's in our asset folder there. And then From here, we're just going to tell Premiere where these assets are, and then we're going to just dive right in. Because one of the things you have to deal with is just setting up your timeline. There's so much to do prep-wise beforehand, and this is really the magic in what you guys delivered. And I will say, for those of you that have had SlingStudio for a while, if you're not doing this, you're only getting a part of the story. I mean, it's free, it's available, we're gonna show you how to get it, and again, it's gonna take your organization to the next level, and yeah, it's pretty exciting to share this today.
All right, well, let's jump into it.
All right, so I'm gonna start with just, let me just jump into Premiere Pro, and I'm running the current 12.1 release, CC2018. And I'll just start out with a new project, just so we can start with a blank slate.
And I should say, we were using footage that we did yesterday in San Francisco.
Footage,
it was 1080p shot with SlingStudio, right?
Correct.
And then you also recorded in native. Okay.
Recorded in native, exactly.
Perfect.
So I'll start with just a new project, and I'll just call it test. And get that in. So, you know, Premiere shows up exactly like you would expect it to. Now, an area in Premiere that you might not be familiar with is our extensions area, which is going to be under the window menu. So I'm going to pop over to the Windows menu, go down to extensions, and let me just zoom in here for you. You can see I've got a number of them. I like Magic Bullet. I use it a lot. They've got an extension. You see the SlingStudio one there. There's another one, Transcriptive. Vimeo's written one. So let's talk a little bit about what those are. I'm just going to show you a really neat one that I show a lot, which really kind of explains what extensions are. So this one is written by a company called Digital Anarchy, and it's called Transcriptive. This is going to do transcription for your timeline. Would be a perfect mate for your SlingStudio workflow. Absolutely. If you need to do closed captioning, open captioning, subtitles, or just you want to write a script. So this actually uses a speech engine setup, and it uses IBM Watson or Speechmatic, so you log in, and it's automatically going to read the audio, send it up to the cloud, and then in 8 minutes per hour, so for an hour video, we'll come back in 8 minutes, so 6 cents a minute. It's pretty incredible that this is, you know, an outreach that this company, Digital Anarchy, has done, and it's enhanced Premiere to the next level, especially if you need this sort of thing. So let's take a look at what Sling has done. So when I go over here, you'll see SlingStudio comes up, and I can import a project and I can sync a project. Now, before I jump into here, I'm going to just point to where you can go to get this. So under the window, you'll see Find Extensions on Adobe Exchange. So I'm going to click over here. This is going to take me to this area here, and I'm just going to arrow down a little bit, and you start to see a bunch of cool freebies that are there. These things do all sorts of things, so you definitely want to use this to extend your workflow. You're just going to go in and type the word Sling, and magically you'll see SlingStudio just appear. So all I did was to go ahead and install that. And I will say the value add here is right here. This is included with your SlingStudio. So again, if you're not doing this, you're not getting the full picture. The other thing that's great to point out is that this is also automatically updated. So whenever the Sling engineers make an update, and you know, this is really just doing some fancy scripting in the background and putting things together, as you'll see, you know, as we change the program, they're going to update it. As you guys make requests of Sling to say, hey, it'd be neat if it could do this, this, and this, you'll get a Creative Cloud icon, dot that'll pop up, and you'll click on it. It'll say there's an update to SlingStudio. So you'll know without having to constantly go back in and check and keep these plugins. And you can also download it from my slingstudio.com as well. So there's 2 different places to get that. All right, so enough setup. Let's just jump right in. So I'm going to go ahead, now that I've got a blank project, I'm going to select a project, which is on my desktop, just as I showed you. And I'm going to zoom in a little bit. And I've got a post-production folder that I put together, and I'm going to just click on that folder there. That's sort of my hierarchy, and it has all my material in it. And I'm going to go ahead and select that. It's automatically going to look for highlights and tags and all these different things that we were doing out in the field, because we did a lot of different things yesterday, Jeff. So I'm going to click OK. It's going to check fonts and do all the kind of magic that you would expect it to. Now it's just going to start to analyze what's in there. There's actually an XML file that it's analyzing, and we also had a video, graphics and video that we had loaded up on Sling yesterday. So I'm going to go ahead and tell it where that video was, because we had some, like a B-roll video. So that's going to be in my assets, and I see it right here. So I'm going to say that's the video. So with that, it'll find all the other stuff. The other thing that they've recently added is they've added this ability to use the Adobe Essential Graphics. So right now it's going in and it's checking in all those essential graphics, because we actually had a scoreboard yesterday where you guys were modifying the score on the Sling by hand, writing it in there. So what they've done is there was a request to say, could you make this work with the motion graphics templates, the essential graphics panel? And they just checked that one in. So there's about 18 of those. So as soon as that's done, it'll say successfully imported.
And for those that may not be familiar with all the features for SlingStudio, like you mentioned, we support the graphic imports and video imports and the tagging, and
right.
So with that you can move those over, as you said, into the Premiere Pro.
Exactly. So let's just look at what happened here. I'm gonna zoom in down here in my program, and you see that it's automatically brought in folders, with the names, with the camera assets in them, preview output, the replays that you had set up, so some really cool things. So all the magic that you guys are already doing with SlingStudio, this organizes so you don't have to do that. I mean, that's got to be, probably takes you, 4 hours for a 1 hour worth of video, a 4 to 1, or for me, it would save me, a minimum of an hour's organization on any production that I do, and probably more than that. So let's take a look at what's going on the timeline. I'm going to hit the slash key here, and I'm just going to hit the tilde key to zoom out. Now, if you look at this, there is a lot going on there. So this always impresses me, because when I look at this, it's added so many layers of video here. We've got 20 layers of video with all sorts of things. It's all organized for me. If I come over here and I just kind of zoom in a little bit and bring this in, I can already start to see what was happening here. So the orange area that you see here, that's actually what we were switching back and forth. So it's like a constant program feed. So I know that's my output. So that's kind of like what you're used to doing on SlingStudio already. That's just kind of like, that's what I finished. But what happens when I want to go in and make a change?
Right.
So what Sling has done is, you'll notice down here, we've got some of these video layers are, say, bright blue and dark blue. The dark blue areas are actually not enabled. So what you guys had done is you said, look, we're going to go ahead and sort of deactivate that video, make it inactive. So that's why it's showing dark, because we switched to this camera, then we jumped to this camera, we went to the wide shot, camera 79, then back to the wide. You can even see here, if I zoom in a little bit, you've got transitions. All of those things get mapped perfectly to the timeline. So if I zoom back out again, there's the timeline already assembled and ready to go. And at any time, you can come in here and say, well, I need to make this track active, so I could use my razor blades and do all the kind of editing that you guys already know. Just right mouse click on it, and then come in here and click enable. When I click enable, that'll turn bright blue. Right. Go to another track if there's one above it, make it inactive, uncheck it. And that's a really great way to edit. So you've kind of set up your own mock multi-camera environment. Now, when I look at this, I have to tell you, this is almost like having an artboard when you're working in Adobe Illustrator, where I have everything that I'm working on all around, that I can just pull things and do what I need to. I can use this for copying and pasting, moving things around. It's really neat. Now, a tip that I'll give you that I normally do, and I've been using Sling for a little over a year now, is I go in and I actually start renaming some of these tracks. And I'm going to show you that in just a minute, with some ones that I had already done. But the big question is going to be, okay, Dave, this is great. What about native video? How do we get to native 4K? Right.
We get questions from our customers constantly about, okay, I love the fact that you can stream with SlingStudio, but I want to have the 4K or the higher res content, the native, and be able to shoot that with my cameras and then take SlingStudio, the proxy, to be able to take advantage of what you've done live, so that you can kind of kill two birds with one stone. So
let's show you how to do that. So I'm going to jump out of this project here. I'll start a new blank project, and I'll just call it Test Native. And I'm not going to sync all the cameras. I'm just going to sync one of the cameras here. And I'm going to click on extensions again. I'm going to bring up SlingStudio. And this time, instead of just going through the normal workflow, this workflow down here where I want to sync the project, so I have my Sling 1080 media that was being fed, from the camera links. Now I want to remove those camera cards, which we've already done, copy those in that folder. So Sling is actually going to help us and sync this through their own technology. They're going to sync the 1080 with the 4K by listening to the audio track and then putting that there. It works fantastic. So I'm going to click Sync Project. And it's a very similar workflow with one extra step. So I'm going to click on that hierarchy folder. Remember, just to help you guys out, this post-production demo is going to be the name of the production that you put on the Sling. So you've got that, and then you just go ahead and in each one of these folders here, I've got all of the native media for the 4K that I shot. So, or our team shot. So I'm going to click Open again. It's going to say Highlights and Tags. So I click on that. Now, what's different here? This again is pretty amazing. It went out and it knows each of the names of the camera links, 79 wide and 25. And now what it wants us to do is to go ahead and just point it and tell it where is that media. So I'm going to just grab this camera 29 or 79, and I'm going to come down here, go back to Slingcast. I'm going to zoom in a little bit, go down to 79. I'm going to click on the folder where I know the MP4 files are in this particular case, these 4K files, and I'm just going to click Open and sync and import. And I would just do that for the other two, but just to save some time. Next step is going to be just tell Sling how you shot this 4K video. So we shot this, I believe, at 30 yesterday, so we're going to come over here and say 4K at 30. And click OK. Now it's going through the synchronization. It's very similar to what it did before, except it's going to give me access to both of those clips, and it's going to name them appropriately on the timeline. And this is where, when it comes up again, I'll explore a little bit more about what's going on. So again, we're going to sync that graphic again, or this video, which we had as a B-roll out in the field. And now it's going to go in and go ahead and sync up some of those motion graphic template text fields that are there. So we'll let it go ahead and go through that. But pretty cool, Jeff. What do you think?
So, I mean, this is great. Like I said, the customers just love to be able to now take their 4K content and have a live cut, just by doing the switching for their streaming. So, what other, so you said it saves hours for the importing and for setup. Now, when you
unless you're lucky, by the way, to have an assistant or an intern, which I'm sure most of our audience wishes they had extra hands.
Yes. So besides the saving on the setup, this also saves you hours of time, because now it allows you to just swap them out.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. So are there other features that you find within this proxy that allow you, what are your favorite parts of the proxy portion?
Well, I mean, to me, just that everything is in one place, as I said before. I mean, you can see what's happening, on the timeline as I start to zoom in. And I'll just zoom in one here. Now that we have this live again, here's camera 79. This is the normal 1080 stream coming from the Sling.
Right.
That's the one that we always know. But the extra piece is I've got this native cam link, and they're automatically paired, and it really works fantastic, and they're right in sync. And the other thing is this is a 4K sequence, so we use the magic of the Adobe scaling engine to scale that 1080 up to 4K, so I'm always ensured how I'm dealing with 4K. However, what I was saying before is this gets a little confusing when you have all this media and things going on the timeline. When I come over here, I don't want to see video 10. I want to know what's the native. So I actually go in and I right mouse click and I rename those tracks as part of my setup.
Right.
That's really the only thing I have to do is just tell it, and I just read the name of the file and it'll tell me what's what. So I've already done that. So let me close this project out and just bring in one that has those label names on it so you guys don't have to sit there and watch me type those in. So now I'm going to just bring this up full screen here, and I'm going to hold the Shift key and I'm going to double click in this area here and then zoom in and show you all the different areas. So let's just talk a little bit about this. You know, we've got a layer that shows the essential graphics text. I know right where to go to edit that. And if I zoom back out, you can see, you guys have color coded these. You know, we've got the pink areas are going to be the graphics that are coming from the Sling and also the graphics that I can edit. I've got my Sling program, which is what it says right here. That's this bright orange area, and if I look down at the bottom down here, I can see the audio that's been paired with that. So what this now allows me to do is to really take a closer look at what's happening here. So as I zoom in, and I just come over here, and I'll start to see camera 25 is not active. Remember when I said you can go in and enable that? So I can click enable. That's how I can turn that back on. So I can actually change that edit. So there's going to be 6 total video tracks that have to do with the video that we shot. You've also got some pretty cool things where you've gone in and said, look, if I'm dealing with a multicam, I want to see all 4 cameras at one time, or in this case, we've only got 3. So I'm going to just double click here and I'm going to throw this over here, and you'll see that the quad area is going to allow me to see everything that's going on in that particular area. So I can use that as a reference as I'm following along. And what's also cool is you guys throw that on the bottom track. So the way that I use it is to double click, throw it in the source monitor, and then I just look and see what's happening, because there might be a shot that I want to switch to, and then I just enable a track or disable a track.
And with SlingStudio, we allow you to record, like you're showing here, the program, the ISOs, as well as a quad track, which you showed just
exactly.
there.
So program and quad and replay. Just as I said, your entire canvas, your entire world that we shot yesterday near the ballpark is right here. We're not missing anything. So I think the magic in the setup is, let me just throw everything on the timeline and just look at it. You've done this for us. This is fantastic for just, taking a look at your project and just saying, I just need to see what happened yesterday. It's fantastic. I mean, it really does save an enormous amount of time. I mean, I could be more excited by how you guys did this. And there's so many little hidden gems here that when you come over and you start looking at the extra work that's here, you'll also notice you've got markers here that you guys have added. And if I come back out and I click here, and I bring up my markers tab down here, right here, click on a marker. Here's all the markers that you guys have put in there, so I know where those replays are. Again, I didn't have to set up any of those. I don't have to go in and add each of those markers to go with the tags and things that you guys have done. Again, there's just so much information that you guys have thrown in there. And I think it's important for the audience to know, as you start to use this, and I really want to encourage you to use this, start getting your wish list back to Sling and say, wow, I could really use this feature or that feature. Because I'm sure there's things that we haven't thought of that would be very useful. We do have a long list of features for not only the console, but for also the plugins. And you were also mentioning on the audio side, because we also, when you bring in the native, you also have access to the individual audio, so you can be able to edit. Exactly. Yeah. So down here, there's all those audio tracks, and they're matched and paired, with their 1080 and their 4K. Now, you've been noticing I've been using the word 1080 and not the word proxy. But for people that are used to proxy editing, just think of the 1080 that came from the Sling as your working proxy. It's very, very easy to do that. So I just think the way that we organize these things are pretty amazing. So one of the things I thought would be interesting to talk about is, you know, you've got this scoreboard feature that's on there, and you see that we've got, you know, 0 and 2. I guess the Giants were down a little. Maybe we should turn that around.
Yeah.
And if I go over to the Essential Graphics panel and I switch that mode over, and I go to Edit down here, I can come in and I can see right down here that, you know, here's the score. So in this particular clip, it looks like the Giants were up 2 points. The Cubs had 4. I can just click on that layer, grab my text tool, come right in here, and then modify that score right at that particular point in time, which I think is pretty cool, because, you know, there are times in sports where maybe you didn't get something right and someone's going to say,
yes,
fix it in post. Exactly.
Fix it.
So you can modify the score. So I think that's a great example of a user asking, hey, is there a way that we can get in and edit the text that, by the way, wasn't created here? It was created on the Sling and the iPad, which I think is pretty amazing. And I think one of the I know we're getting on time. One of the things we should mention here is you know, the tagging that's in here. We can create highlight reels right here inside Premiere Pro and modify those. You know, all of these tags were set up in Sling on the iPad, and you'll notice we have the 1080 tag and the native tag. All I have to do to really get this workflow going is I just come in here and I just turn on or turn off the eyeballs that are here. And this also works when I go to export. Just turn off those 3 1080 layers, your program and your quad, and when you export, you're exporting the native 4K resolution. It's it couldn't be easier.
Well, great. Well, thanks for showing us a little glimpse of Premiere Pro and how SlingStudio extensions work with